Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Ganbarian.
Hey guys, it's Mike Forster. What's up?
Hey. And we have a guest. Ryan Key's not here.
Barking, right?
Something about a house and a baby, stuff. Nick, introduce our guest.
Hey, if you're watching, that's my buddy Dean. Me and Dean have a lot in common. We both play bass. We both roast coffee. We both like Star Wars. What else? Anything else? What am I missing?
We probably spend too much time doing things we shouldn't. But yeah.
Yeah. We're quote unquote, the kids would call us hustlers. We hustle.
True.
You have a podcast also, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a prop maker with your son, RDT3 Creative. That's something that you took up during the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. We got a 3D printer during the pandemic to kind of, in my head, teach them 3D modeling, but really make stuff.
Yeah,
And then
I like that.
we got another printer, bigger printer, and now me and both my sons and my wife too, we all
Nice.
are making. Halloween's coming, so we're busy.
Yeah.
Nice.
You also roast coffee with Thunder King Coffee, which is we were neighbors for a minute. We were both in Costa Mesa, but we moved on, and you're still in Costa Mesa.
I am. We are. Thunder King we've done since 2015, and coffee life. It's fun.
And then also I mentioned you podcast with iHeart Costa Mesa. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
It's just a community-based podcast where, essentially promoting local businesses and things like that, just spotlighting who owns what in the city and trying to, that kind of took off during the pandemic as well, trying to keep business in our city, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like every city should have that.
Sure.
Instead of advertisements on the radio or the newspaper, in the 80s or whatever. You should just throw a podcast like, here's what's going on this week.
Well, it's the hip thing now. So, yes.
White dudes with podcasts. It's just, it's part of what you do as a suburban white dude.
That's true.
St.
We try to be
Louis,
we try to be as unique as we can. You know what I mean?
Very.
Special stuff. What is different about us, though?
We're wearing hoodies this time. Oh, different thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long sleeves.
Sure.
We thought it would be fun to have Dean come on the podcast because we're wrapping up this Ahsoka season. We're gonna do a full season review, and we thought it would be interesting to talk to someone who is a big Star Wars fan who watched all of Ahsoka but hasn't seen any of the animation. Because we've talked a lot about whether or not people are getting it, whether or not people are enjoying it, whether or not it kind of goes too deep, whether or not we're just dealing in straight up deep cut territory. So Dean, being a person who's a big fan who hasn't watched animation, fit the bill, and here we are.
That's right.
Should we let's start just by asking a big obvious question, and I hope you have the answer that I hope you have. Having watched Ahsoka, well, first, did you enjoy the show?
I loved it. Loved it so much.
So then the next question is, that's a great thing to hear. The next question is, do you feel like you needed to? I would say you probably would. You could have been better off on some level, but did you finish the show, or was there ever a point during watching, during the season, that you thought, man, this could have been better if I would have watched animation, if I knew more? Or did you kind of just get along, get on the ride and enjoy it?
I don't think so. Like, I don't ever feel that way. And part of the reason, I think, after all these new shows have been coming out in the last however many years, 3-4 years, is I listened to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I watch the recaps on YouTube, New Rockstars, A Screen Crush, or those types of things, right? So I love Star Wars. Like, I love it. And I love learning all this new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll go back and watch. I've tried to go watch some of the Clone Wars and things like that. But also, maybe it'll be even cooler to go watch now.
Yeah.
Because I like learning all this new stuff. I know all there is to know with what I know. But this new stuff, like I said, I love Star Wars. So like, if you're going to give me content and I get to learn new stuff of new worlds and things that connect, it's really awesome for me. I really enjoy that way.
That's awesome to hear. So were there times watching it where you would finish an episode and immediately think, I can't wait until the new Rockstar's breakdown comes, or this or that, to get things kind of explained to you? Or was the story sufficient as a standalone thing? You know what I mean? Did you need those supplemental materials?
No, I didn't need them, because those Easter eggs and those things, I think, are special to the story and make it cool for, I'll say, you guys. But for me, it's like, wow, I don't know what the green magic dust is coming out of that guy.
Yeah.
That's cool. Let's find out. Like, and then you do, and makes it all that much cooler. But also,
Nice.
they seem to be, as I'm learning, some things are from, the canon, and then some things are from the Timothy Zahn books, and then this, and then that, and then, so it seems like we all think we know, but also they kind of do what they want,
Right.
and we hang on.
I feel like we're at a zoo right now. I feel like we're looking at Dean and we're fascinated by him, because we're like, he didn't watch animated, but he knows Star Wars so well. Like, what is he like? Dean, did you feel like at some point? So the way that I explain this to, I really remember the moment in the man. Are you all live action? You've seen all live action?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Star Wars shows. Okay. So so the first time you've seen Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, was in Obi-Wan, right? That was the first time you've seen him since episode 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're at least primed to knowing that Darth Vader is, he's about in the galaxy doing things, right?
Yes.
What's interesting, the way that we had talked about this, is in Mandalorian episode 3, Bo-Katan shows up to save Din Djarin from this aquatic monster in the Mama Core, right? And animation friends are freaking out because Bo-Katan is now in live action, right? And my friends who didn't watch animation were like, who's that? She looks awesome. She's cool. The contrary of both of those things obviously played out differently, but like, to what you're saying, did you have this kind of same reaction to, you're, like Adam is saying, you're just along for the ride, and like, at what point are you curious enough to go, have you ever felt like, I feel like I'm supposed to know who this person is? Or is it, you just kind of, you go along with it and you're just like, I have a feeling this person is probably a big deal in the Star Wars universe?
Well, you know who she is. Like, I make costumes.
Yeah.
So I know who she is.
Right.
You see something and you're like, that's cool. I'm going to look that up. But like, if you like Star Wars, even
it's hard to escape. Yeah.
If really people were like, I don't know who Bo-Katan is. Now, I didn't know it was Bo-Katan Kryze. I didn't know it was I didn't know the backstories. I didn't know the Darksaber stuff. That's all newer for me.
Sure.
But like, what a time to learn. I'm older, I'm 44. So like, the cartoons were young for me when that happened. That was a little, like, I'm a little old for that. So, but I'm not so old that I'm only, original trilogy only guy.
OT purist.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
You figure it out. You learn. Like I said, I like Star Wars, so I'm going to figure it out.
Sure.
And I'm going to learn about it.
Sure. My side, what's interesting about that is like, so I never, and I can empathize with anyone who hasn't watched animated stuff, because up until Disney Plus, it was scattered all over the place. You used to have to download the Cartoon Network app, and then this was happening on Disney XD. And I'm like, dude, I don't got any of this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So then Disney Plus drops, the pandemic drops. I'm like, I'll dive in. But I had heard so much more about Rebels over Clone Wars because Rebels had a shorter amount of seasons in it. So I start watching that. We find out Ahsoka Tano comes on screen, which I know who that is. And I remember she comes onto screen and I go, I have a feeling that was probably a big deal. that she was revealed to be this sleeper agent and all this kind of stuff. So this should be a fascinating discussion, I think, in regards to like just asking what seemed to pique your interest and what also seemed to be like, what did you, was there anything you needed clarity on? Was, did this moment hit for you? Because I think for us, people are like crying over the flashback episodes. And I'm sitting here for some of my friends who don't watch animated. They're like, hey, what was that? That was cool. I was like, wiping tears away. I'm like, it was the most amazing thing you've ever seen. And they're like, I like that. They could have showed more of that. I'm like, all right, fair. So this should be
young Ahsoka is like, this is the Clone Wars. I'm like, that's the most meta thing in the world. I'm like, thanks. I mean, there's probably going to be a lot of repeated story beats here or podcast beats, but I mean, I didn't get into the animated series until 2015 or so. And, I watched Clone Wars, and the more I watched it, the more I got into it. I really loved Rebels right away. That's why I was so intrigued with Ahsoka basically being, season 5 of Rebels. But it really is interesting. One of the things I feel like I've said a lot in the last few episodes on this show is Star Wars is like the most unique thing because it really does depend on the super fans to fill in the heaviness of some moments. And I don't know if other franchises are like is Harry Potter like that? Is Marvel like that? Like, I really don't know. I doubt it, but it's such an interesting way to write shows where, like, Dean, you haven't seen animation, Bo-Katan shows up, Ahsoka shows up, whatever, the Mortis Gods, like all this stuff. It's like you kind of just have to get that information, and then for someone like you who wants to know more is going to go find out about it now, like maybe now is the time where you're like, all right, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, here we go. Like maybe it now is the time for you because of the live action stuff. So it's all very interesting.
And I don't feel this way about like the MCU.
Interesting.
Like for example, I love those movies. Like I love when Iron Man came out in 2008 or whatever. I was like, oh man. And I was never into comics, but I was like, this is cool. This is whatever. And all these, movies have come out, and then all the TV shows, I'm having a hard time with most of them.
Same.
Yeah, agreed.
Same.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up as well, and I'm dedicated to catching up, mainly because Loki season 1 was the best Marvel thing I had seen since probably Infinity War, and before that Iron Man 2008. So I'm trying to catch up because damn, Loki season 2, I'm like ready, but I don't want to have holes in it. So I'm like the opposite approach that you're taking with Star Wars in a way. Like it's the OCD. I need to watch it in order, and I need to know what's what. So,
thank the maker, a partially informed MCU podcast.
So, is there anything? Are there any like maybe just with the finale or anything throughout the season for you, Dean, that is still vague, or maybe you have the information but you don't quite know what's speculation and what's legit that you have questions about or that you want to discuss? Is there stuff that you've just been like waiting to discuss with people to try to get deeper with?
Well, I mean, I will normally reach out to Nick essentially for that. But like,
Nick, spill the beans. What did he ask about?
No. If we want to talk about vagueness, I feel like the finale was the vaguest thing of all. The whole season, where I was so excited, like, oh man, and it wasn't on at midnight. So like I actually like could watch it. You were
conscious when you're watching it?
Well, yeah, because I would stay up and text Nick during Mandalorian and be like, all right, I'm starting. And like, I'm old. I get tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, the finale was the only episode that I was like, huh? That's it?
Right.
And then as I've learned about the Mortis Gods and like this stuff, I'm like, oh. And now I'm super bummed because maybe a year or two for another bit of this info. Like there's a definite disappointment in how long all this stuff takes. Like Andor was a long season, and I was like, dude, this is an amazing show whether it has lightsabers or not.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the ship had lightsabers, but you know what I mean? Like whether it had any force magic, it was cool. It was it was like watching Law and Order or something, like a well-written drama, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, you just have to wait so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one way to, I guess, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, first of all, yeah, I wanted to, I don't remember if I had this thought off camera or on camera, but you kind of want it to be like television where every September your show comes back, you know?
Right.
But it's not Seinfeld, you know, like this is literally streaming, it's not television, so they don't adhere to those broadcast rules. Plus, how they're making this is Mando season 2, Book of Boba Fett, you know, like then Mando season 3, Ahsoka. This is all like, if you had a DVD box set of it, it would be the same box set, and I think that they're leaning on that. Like, I hate that we will have to wait probably 2 years for Ahsoka season 2, but we'll have Mando season 4 before that.
Yeah.
No, Mike says no.
I don't know, man. Well, we have the only things that are still, I think, on the docket, right, are Skeleton Crew. Which
well, those are all in production, yeah.
Well, Skeleton Crew, I believe we're probably going to hear. I would probably say that there is at least some regard, like we're going to get some kind of gallery or some kind of behind the scenes thing. Personally, I hope that we get a art of book.
Yeah.
I look forward to getting those every single time. I still want one for Book of Boba Fett, but I think Skeleton Crew is likely now dropping. Maybe
They're saying January.
February.
The internet.
That's what I'm looking at.
Rumor has
it
it first week of January.
Acolyte from there. So we'll probably, you know, they're gonna let the dust settle on Ahsoka, and then fire up the engines and let's go.
And from what we could infer from Skeleton Crew, that's in this timeline, but it seems like it's happened already, right? Like it is going to take place before season 3 of Mandalorian.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah. So that probably won't necessarily shed any light on any Ahsoka stuff, but who knows?
Unless they find her. Go on.
Right. Dean, you mentioned the Mortis Gods. Let's talk about that a little bit. Talk about that ending. So did you take anything from that? Did you have, you know, based on the stuff that you learned leading up to the finale, did you have any idea what that might mean?
No, not at all.
Okay,
like,
word.
Not one bit. And then hearing you guys talk about it, and I was like, oh, this is like deep old. And Balin, baby. Yeah, and Balin being the character he is was like, you know, that couldn't have been more perfect. Like the whole tragedy of him and in general is just so unfortunate for this situation in a selfish way, because he's like he was the perfect dude and character for whatever this Mortis situation is. And like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm excited to learn more about that in whatever 5 years or whenever it happens.
Well, you can learn a lot about it just by watching that one arc in the Clone Wars, that 3-episode arc.
Do I have to watch a cartoon?
You do have to watch a cartoon.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
Honestly, you'll be just as confused after too.
So we talked about it a bit last week. Let's talk about it a little bit more. And, you know, Dean, of course, if like any of it starts making sense to you, or if you have any questions, chime in here. Yeah. But we've seen a little bit. We've seen there's like some really good Instagram accounts that are taking the shots and doing side by sides with the Mortis arc. You know, still from the Mortis arc in Clone Wars. There's a shot of Anakin looking across the mountain range, seeing a light, you know, matched with Balin doing the same thing. We, like I said, we inferred a lot last week. Mike, you've been like most dialed into this. Do you want to talk at all about kind of like lead this little bit of speculation here? Because ultimately, like we're leading to like the Mortis Gods being replaced. There's a vacuum there, right?
Right. So I think for people, I mean, if you're watching this podcast, you've obviously watched, and I think I would be very interested to know, and maybe we should do a poll as to who has watched animation who has gone back and found the information that we need to in regards is similar to what you're doing, Dean, right? And the Mortis arc is such an interesting thing because it's kind of open to interpretation in many ways, right? There's different ideas of who Mirai is, and then there's different ideas of like who Ahsoka is. Is Ahsoka the daughter? Is Mirai the daughter? And we kind of have all these different opinions about what exactly that could be. And so we have, in regards to the Force, the long-standing thing in the EU is, of course, that there is a son, a daughter, a father, and a mother, right? And the mother was a human that essentially drinks. We're going back into your classic mythology here, but drinks from a Force, I don't know, enhanced pool of knowledge, and she essentially gets it's almost like a wellspring, right? So it's like a Garden of Eden kind of a thing. And the idea is that it basically corrupted her into this really pure form of evil, and the idea of being able to manipulate things. And so the mother essentially gets banished. And what's interesting about the way that they showed the father, he's got this crown and he's, kind of almost looks like a terrifying Santa Claus, is pointing to this direction. So the speculation going on right now, of course, is that the father basically asked Anakin Skywalker, essentially in some ways, and of course, again, we have three people who are open to interpretation here, but Anakin Skywalker very easily looking like he could replace the father. This idea that has been on both sides of the Force, understands power, understands that everything needs a checks and balance, and so it's could be possibly looking at Baylan Skoll is while Ahsoka has taken the place of the daughter, Baylan Skoll could be taking the place of the son. The son is on the opposite side of the father. The daughter is good. The son is bad. And so we have these kind of throwbacks in regards to like the weapons that they use. And we've seen them in live action. We've seen them in other parts of animation. They're considered like Force equipped weapons. This is similar to Mother Talzin's sword. And so there's a lot of really interesting things about the theology of Star Wars. And it's one of those things that when you watch the Mortis arc, I think maybe for all of us, because we've talked about this, really made me look at Star Wars completely differently. It sets up one of those things that goes from like good guys versus bad guys, cool ships, laser swords. This was like a big eye-opening experience for me to look at how George, I think, viewed the concept of the Force in a much greater expansion that gets into, I would say, the ideology of what people would do to wield it, find it, captivate it, harness it. What does that mean? So I
precious.
Think basically. It really, truly, it is one of the craziest. It is one of the craziest arcs in regards to like how we treat the Force, how we think about Star Wars. So that's kind of like our Mortis arc right here. What's interesting about it, that final scene, the daughter is there. She's missing her head. Savage, kind of crazy. But obviously it means that she's not there anymore. That's, I think, what that's obviously trying to visualize.
Things are unbalanced because of that. And they have been unbalanced basically from that point on in the Mortis arc, pretty soon after that.
Right.
And the reason, real quick, just to clarify, Mike, the reason you're suggesting, and I fully agree with this, the idea that Anakin becomes the new father is because that's what the father in the Mortis arc wanted when they were there in the first place. He was aging out of the situation. He knew he was going to die. He wanted someone to take his place, and he wanted Anakin to be that person.
Right.
And in order to, this is the way I remember it, in order to kind of convince him of it, he gives him this Force vision where he doesn't see specifically, but like he has a type of a Force vision that clues him into the idea that he's going to go down a dark path and a bunch of bad shit's going to happen.
Right.
Ultimately, obviously, Anakin doesn't do it. He becomes Darth Vader and whatever. But that's been the intention since long, long ago. Well, what is 50 years or whatever? Not that long ago. But that was the plan. So Anakin is the logical father. Ahsoka is the logical sister because she was brought back to life when she died in Mortis by the sister imbuing her with her life force. That leaves the son as at least the one that we've seen as the next seat to be filled, Balin being dark side leaning, is a logical candidate for that. But I think what will be interesting is, Balin wants to be the father. He doesn't want to be the son,
Right.
So that's
I have
some
so
really
many thoughts right
interesting
now.
conflict.
Oh, Nick
Still
has
not.
thoughts.
See, this is
Come on, Nick.
this is so exciting. Doesn't he want to destroy? Do you think he wants to destroy it all? He wants to end the cycle, though.
Balin?
By becoming the new father, though, wouldn't that do it?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess because he
But-
said he wanted
or-
to end the back and forth between the Jedi, and I think he said Jedi and Empire, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right. But does the father representing that he needs to be in the balance, is that basically just the metronome going back and forth, right? So the mother could be the destructor of it all. And him looking in that direction saying, if you want to stop this endless cycle of back and forth, get the mother and she'll
We need
destroy.
mommy.
That's basically Ragnarok, right?
Yeah.
What is Ragnarok? Tell the people.
So, yeah.
Not just
Ragnarok.
a Thor movie.
Ragnarok is essentially the end of days. It's the idea of all the gods being destroyed, and basically ending the power struggle that exists for rising empires, rising power, opposites of each side. Ragnarok is the end of days. So I think this
Brutal.
can work.
So,
Dogs and cats living together. So go ahead.
two things. So, being that things like the Night Sisters and the Mortis Gods are George era ideas. Like he those were in the Clone Wars, and George was still on board for writing that stuff alongside Filoni. Dean, how do you feel about this more like fantasy side of Star Wars? Because I think that there's probably people out there who aren't similar to you in some senses, but are similar in the sense that they haven't watched any animated stuff. But these ideas, if people are going to complain about witches and Mortis Gods and stuff like that,
Space whales?
and space whales, like all
Ooh,
space
yeah.
whales might
Let's
be
talk about
Filoni.
that.
Yeah, space whales might be Filoni, but I love them because they weren't in Clone Wars, right?
They
That
were in
was just
Rebels.
the Rebels thing.
Correct.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about this like fantasy leaning, almost like some of the stuff is Lord of the Rings-esque kind of leaning fantasy side of Star Wars?
Yeah, or what is everybody says Dune, right? So it's hard.
We have an episode on it.
Because, it's hard because it's art is subjective, right? Like what whispers to somebody screams to somebody else. So all this info and the fantasy info, if it was like, it would be almost more impressive if we knew that this was George's plan all along. But it also gets it's like a bummer when you listen back to these things with him and he's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's what it means. Let's go with that. And you're like,
Yeah.
it like breaks our little hearts, but also if you don't want to know all that fantasy stuff, you don't really have to, because what layer do you want to jump in at? You don't have to. So it doesn't bother me, but there's a lot. There's a lot. And it's like, you guys know so much stuff where you're also like, oh, well, this should have been this, or this is very similar to this. It's weird that they didn't do this, and it's like, I don't care. I'm like,
Nice.
just give me more swords.
Yeah, you
whatever.
have this like weight, or you're weightless and we're weighted, when it comes to like what we know here and there. So
yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Because I don't know any of it, but I only know what now I'm being taught.
Sure. And was there any part of any of this like that seemed goofy, or any of it take you out of the moment? I like our pod mate Sarah was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see zombies in that regard. And I'm like, well, we've done that a couple times for sure in Star Wars. But
I mean, the zombie noise, like you guys talked about, that was like, oh, all right.
sure. Right.
But also, again, like, remember what we are talking about, like people in space in a galaxy far, far away, with, magic, right?
Laser swords.
And laser swords. And
everything's on the table.
Like, yeah. So like, if something takes you out of this, let's think about what we're talking about. Like,
yeah, what were you in for to begin with?
Yeah, what did you not believe about the Star Wars movies?
Yeah,
that
it's like I
wasn't
like
real?
magic, but not that kind of magic.
Well, that's
It's like,
right.
Get out of here.
That's
Come
too
on.
much. It's like, dude,
Right.
just ride. Let's just
Right.
ride this ride
Yeah.
because we live here.
Right.
Let's
When we heard
let's explore somewhere
sounds
else.
in space in the opening crawl in 1977, I think a bunch of people probably should have been like, you know what, this isn't going to be the movie for me. I'm going to go ahead and go. But no, that's I just find it interesting in regards to like where and we've talked about this actually pretty extensively, is the idea that you have a show like this that is so out there into the fantastical elements of attempting to really push your suspension of disbelief, right? We have, for people who have really loved the kind of lived in grittiness of Star Wars, and we really saw that and when you look at the difference of it, because it's very hard for me to imagine a Purrgil, even a Rancor in Andor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because the way that they
right.
just set those mini universes up so far apart, even though it's all in the same one, right? And then when we come back and we look at it, I think for some people, they struggle to remember that this is all happening kind of at the same time, right? But for some people who latched onto Rogue One and they latched onto the mechanical side of people building these spaceships, some of these concepts they're just a little wacky. You know what I mean? They're just a little bit out there in regards to when they attach to something like the grittiness and the realistic tone, the adultness of Andor, the adultness of Rogue One. Sometimes, they would look at it and go, oh, the naughty, like, what the heck? What are those things? Forgetting that the Ewoks existed. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
it's interesting. It's interesting having these thoughts as a bunch of 35-plus-year-old fans of this franchise that goes back 50 years at this point,
But even the naughty, right? Or the noti, how did we decide it was really said?
I mean,
Either way.
Nick said a little naughty, and
Little
I haven't
naughty.
gotten
I really
over it
like
yet. Yeah,
it's
I
so
really like
noti.
little naughty. But even
That's the one little naughty of the noti.
of the note.
Yeah.
Let's
you-
go with that.
where you guys say, oh, it's the Ewok scene. It's the Ewok scene. And there's a constant comparison to that on the pod, right? I don't even think that way. Because also, I love the Ewoks, and I saw Return of the Jedi in the theaters when I was a kid. So like that's very special to me. But also, I don't think of them the same. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, of course they are. Just like the antagonist is the antagonist is the antagonist. But like, no, they're different. They're different little dudes. Like, but they're the same. But also, just ride the ride,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that comparison for us was just fun to make.
It is.
You
It
know,
is, definitely.
and also made for the sake of getting people to chill out. Like, look, man, you're on board with this, but not this. Let's have a little
Right.
perspective, so that's usually our objective there. But yeah, I'm the same way, like just on the ride, and everything is more fun that way. This is a really goofy analogy that I'm about to make, but my dad had a bad temper. I grew up with a bad temper. Playing sports or like working around the house or this or that, like having meltdowns, like some of the best like personal therapy for that was to just like let go of the objective sometimes, like my dad, I played golf my whole life. My dad played golf as well. At some point, after just breaking clubs over his knee, throwing them against trees, just wasting all this money, he's like, I'm just not going to keep score anymore. I'm just going to like go swing the club and have fun. And it got better for him. I did the same thing. And I was like, wow, this is the most fun I've ever had. Stop thinking so hard about the thing and just enjoy the experience, and everything's better. You know what I mean? Like, you like the thing. Just let go of all the expectations for yourself or for the thing and enjoy the experience, and it's all better. I'm not trying to be anybody's therapist, but that makes
We're
sense to me.
getting there.
But this is
Now
the
I just want
point
to play golf with you, Adam.
Yeah, let's
This
do
is
it.
great.
I do too, actually. But this is the point with this fantasy world that we're talking about. I mean, the internet has given everyone a voice, and everyone gets to say what they want, and everybody wants to be a villain, or
Mhm.
everybody wants to be a hero, or whatever. But also, like, Do you like what you like?
Yeah. Good question.
Imagine
That's
liking the
that's a
thing
big
that you
quote,
like.
you know?
Just imagine that.
Imagine.
That's a new question. Do you like what you like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think I made this similar analogy a couple years ago on the podcast. A good friend of mine, Matt Deutschman, who he's a photographer. He's come to Mosh Isley. We were Star Wars nerds together in high school back in the day. I remember there was a band. God, I can't remember who it was. May have been like Everclear or something. It was one of those bands that, like, even though we were all into new metal and stuff, like, you know, they had a single that came out and we were super into it, and we went to a bunch of shows for their first album, and then the second album came out. He didn't like it. None of us really liked it. And he had this like really poignant realization as a teenager. He goes, you know, I'm not mad about it anymore. I think maybe I just don't like this kind of music anymore.
Yeah.
And we were all like,
Walked away.
Why not?
oh, whoa. Yeah, that makes sense. Fuck it. On to the next thing. You know?
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm familiar. I think I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah, just think about it. A little self-awareness. All right, let's talk about one more thing before we get on to the bingo cards. We have to update those and maybe make some judgment calls. We'll see. Okay, Thrawn. Thrawn's arc, maybe not even his arc, just like his state of mind in this series seems to contradict in some ways, or at least on the surface, how he has felt in the new canon off-screen stuff, so comics and the graphic novel. I got a message. We've talked about this a little bit. I feel like we talked about it last week, but I got a message earlier today from patron Sky's the Limit, and I could read his message, or I could actually bring up the comic. There's a really good panel in the comic where he's talking about the he's a species called Chiss, and in the comic there's some flashbacks and stuff, and he's talking about his true intentions and his path, like, to becoming part of the Empire and being promoted and all this stuff, and it's kind of unexpected to him. So let's take a look at this right now and talk about it. Here we go. So there's this conversation here. And actually, have any of you guys read this comic or read the new Thrawn novels?
I've read all the new Thrawn novels, so is this a comic adaptation?
I don't know if this is an adaptation or not, but I know that this discusses the thing about his past and how he becomes kind of part of the Empire.
Is this the blue guy?
This is the blue guy Thrawn.
This is Cad Bane. You're right.
Yeah.
Which the new awesome Star Wars meme is when Thrawn hears that Anakin was Ahsoka's master. That meme
Sweat.
has a lot of legs right now. A lot of good stuff out there.
All right, so he's facing off against this dude. I don't know who this is. I haven't read it. I have to admit. So he asks him, "Can't you see the evil you're helping to perpetuate in the galaxy by being part of the Empire, right?" And Thrawn responds, "There are things in the galaxy far more evil than the Empire and far more dangerous to all living beings. I sought out the Empire to discover if they would serve better as allies or as easier prey than my people." So ultimately it comes down to like his allegiance to his people, to the Chiss. And this dude says, so for anyone who's listening and not watching here, I dug to get your Royal Imperial Academy records. The story I heard was that you were rescued from exile. And Thrawn says it was intended to so appear, right? So all part of like a larger plan and a ploy, tactics, that Thrawn's known for. But that was not the reality. The encampment was designed to appear as if I had been abandoned. Sorry, Yeah, as if I had been abandoned by my fellow Chiss for years. In truth, I was only there a few months. The plan was to lure an Imperial ship to the planet, use my tactical skills to slip aboard, and be taken to Coruscant. I had hoped merely to persuade the Emperor to allow me to study the Empire's political and military structure. So it's I don't know.
By the way, the opening of this scene of when he gets quote unquote captured is beyond badass, and I hope that everyone can read the first chapter of the Thrawn novel, in which the Empire shows up on this planet. There's equipment that they don't understand. They're like, what is all this stuff? Interesting. And then lights go out, things start exploding. Stormtroopers, like, oh, there's stormtroopers over here. And then it's like, wait, no, those are decoys. Thrawn just like ravages this entire group, and then they evacuate, land him in the hangar, turn off the lights, and he just walks out. It's so good. I feel like we should, Nick, book. Let's do a book.
Yeah,
a book
I mean,
study,
I'd almost
right?
rather, you know,
Book
I
club.
love visuals, so I almost would rather like get my hands on this comic or just get it on the Marvel app or something, just so I can visualize it. But
Hoopla.
yeah,
Free comics.
oh, okay, cool.
To read the last few lines here, though, Thrawn says, his offer to make me an officer in the Imperial Navy gave me the opportunity to learn much more. I'm afraid that uniform has blinded you to reality, this guy's saying to him, especially if you think I would abandon my people and and join you in your fight for a better empire. So it doesn't seem like, at least from what I've been sent here, that there's much more. You know, if Thrawn goes much deeper with that. But I mean, you know, priorities can change, perspective can change, but his original intention was not to rise through the ranks just to be an Imperial. You know what I mean? It was about his people.
His people. Which, I mean, is there anything yet that contradicts that in Ahsoka?
Not. Well, I mean, some of the dialogue where he's talking about, you know, he says for the Empire. It could all be a big long con, you know, but I don't know. Then again, like, you know, aligning with the Night Sisters makes it clear that he's not about Imperial protocol per se.
Because it could be if I'm gonna try to keep his original, because that is canon. Like what we just saw is canon. It's a new Thrawn novel. That's a comic adaptation. You know, if his main goal is security for his people, if he just becomes the head of the Empire by kind of posing in this era that he wants to take it over, then in theory he rules the Empire and can now help his people, basically. So that's one way I would look at it.
I mean, you could think about any politician who has a religious agenda, who claims to be, you know, a founding fathers constitutionalist, but is really on a religious, you know, on a path for their religion. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or what about a reality show host who pretended to be an evangelical Christian? Is there any examples of that?
I could see if we could find one. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Too political. This makes sense to me. I think
I hope the guy who said it was too political started listening again and now got back out again.
I haven't checked the reviews lately. There's got to be a second one. By the way, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Thanks. I would imagine that saying anything, putting anything into Thrawn's arc in this series for Filoni made it obviously just a little too much for people to swallow. You know, there's already enough for people to catch up on who haven't watched animation. You know what I mean? You can't put too much in the mix.
Well, how? I mean, I'm just riding the ride with Thrawn. Like, I don't know the back stuff that you guys know, but what I have learned is he's all about tactics.
Mm-hmm.
He's all about the art of war.
Yeah.
right? So like you kind of watch him and he's like, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Or now I know he got bested by a Jedi, so he got some witchy gals to give him that side of things, right? So like it's weird because in my head I don't know, is he the one trying for absolute power? Everyone else was unlimited power. Everyone, the strongest and the baddest and the best and all the power in the galaxy, right? Well, I think he just really enjoys this game.
Like playing the game, yeah.
Yeah. That's what it seems to me, not knowing all the stuff from that you guys know.
Yeah. There is like, there's so much depth to his character in Rebels, even, not to mention all of this stuff on paper. He's such a fan of art and culture. There's this whole thing where he brings in Sabine, because Sabine's an artist. That's the other thing. There's all these layers to Sabine that make her the kind of the rebel that she is, lowercase r rebel. And he has her captured and brings her in, and has like the big stone mural that she touches in the beginning after she cuts her hair of the rebels. He's got a big hollow of that in his office. He's got all these artifacts. He's got a Calicori and all this stuff. And he's like very, very fascinated by it. So I think it is like the game, like the tactics, like he's playing a real life version of, what was the board game, the war game? Risk, Strategio, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then there's the art and cult. It's almost, he's like he's like Hitler, like wants to collect all these artifacts and things that he thinks are really fascinating and doesn't care if he kills a bunch of people in the process.
Yeah. It's interesting because I thought it would have been helpful storytelling wise for the more general public, for them to see him do something badass, super badass this season. But in my head canon, the first scene of episode 1 of Mando season 4 is what I wanted to happen in Ahsoka episode 8. Like he shows up to the New Galaxy and destroys a New Republic fleet or something like that. Like, that should be how season 4 opens. Hire me, Dave Filoni.
NATO Potato in the patron chat says, also don't forget about the Shadow Council, how they will get involved with Thrawn now that he's back. So if there is this conflict about his motives, that would be, that interaction would be the time for that to be exposed and addressed.
And his right-hand man, Paleon, is there. So he has like a proxy there. I mean, that whole Shadow Council is real interesting for a lot of reasons, which I hope we get like enough depth out of it, because like we covered on the show, I don't remember which Hux. I know it was his father. I forget his name, but like
Brindle Hux.
Yeah, so Brindle Hux is obviously birthed officer in the First Order. So that's a direct link to the First Order. Plus, I'm still like holding out hope, if it makes sense in a sick way, to have Prime Moff Gideon still alive. Like the one we saw was just one of the clones or something like that. So I don't know. There's just so much that can be done, and I wish we had time and money to see it all happen at a correct pace.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out in a sentence that Moff Gideon is still alive. Like I want a whole episode about it.
Somehow Moff Gideon has returned.
Sky's the Limit clarified in the chat here. Yes, the comic, that is the comic adaptation of the first novel.
Cool.
So I will be reading that because I am bad at books.
I think though, if we look at what's interesting, and Dean, I love your perspective on things too, and I wish that more people, I think, had your open-mindedness to it, because I have a couple people who haven't gone down the animation rabbit hole as well, and there was that comment of like, for as much as I know that Thrawn was the big bad, right? The way that people had talked about Thanos in the comic books before Thanos became Thanos of the MCU was like, he was not he's the most powerful guy in the universe, right? and Thrawn has such a, I want to say like his the fans of Thrawn, because of what he represented as in the Empire, what we represented as someone who does tech. I think everybody likes a really smart villain, right? I think that's we've loved that. I think in general we love seeing tactics. I mean, that's like why they made so many Ocean's 11 movie, right? Like that was always the whole thing, was just like you loved seeing a heist movie because all of these things had been thought out and you watched a plan in action. That was like literally Thrawn's entire thing, was always being 3 steps ahead with 2 contingencies. And so I had some people that were like, well, I thought he would have done something like a little cooler than that. I'm like, the guy got back from Peridia with an army and then set up shop. Like he showed up to Dathomir and was like, let's get to work. I'm pretty sure he won, that's the thing that I can't figure out, that people are like, I wish he would have done something more badass. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I mean, the guy like played this whole thing as soon as it started rolling out in front of him. It was like he was waiting for it. It's kind of awesome to see. So it's hard to look at from the perspective of where the pacing is on the production side, that we don't get to see it, because like I remember us talking about this on the podcast, that it would be hard to imagine that Thrawn could be taken care of in one season. It kind of defeats him. We had 3 seasons of Moff Gideon. He's just he's one guy who works for Thrawn. I'm like, like the next like 10 years are just them trying to fight Thrawn. So I don't know what the pacing is going to be moving forward for this, for people to understand like kind of what a threat he is in regards to upsetting the entire balance of the New Republic, which is already showing cracks. It's like he's the perfect opportunity to be able to say, transition out of the New Republic. Is he the one who starts the First Order? Like, I'm ready.
I love his confidence too, when you think back to that line, which I'll paraphrase, where he's talking to Sabine and he's like, so basically you risked your entire galaxy just to get here to find Ezra. And it's like the confidence there of like, when I get back there, I'm in charge. Like, I'm going to kill everybody. I'm in charge, right? Like, you risked everything for your boy Ezra over here.
Who didn't bring you back.
Right.
He tried.
Okay.
He did his best. All right, let's move on. Let's look at these bingo cards. I'm going to show the screen here again. I haven't updated these yet because I wanted to do it together. That's the excuse I'm going to go with. Whoops. Let's get rid of that because it's boomer alert. All right. All right, Ahsoka bingo. Here's what we're working with.
We should have one button on our soundboards for an actual boomer alert. Like an actual alarm.
What do you think that? What is that sound? What is that?
I don't know.
What is the boomer alert?
That's poop in your pants.
It's just, damn it, Bobby.
All right, this is mine. It's looking rough.
Adam.
God, dude. Here's the thing. I'm gonna mark this up. Add some things. I think there's like maybe 1 to check off here. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Okay. Man, God, Morai appears more prominent than Amando. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me get an orange here.
Yeah, why not?
There you go. Yeah. It was
you could see that it was Morai for sure. So yeah, I'm with it. I'm with it.
Very, very clear.
And the next scene was Mortis Gods, so that is more prominent. There you go.
Yeah.
Love it.
Ezra has not embraced the dark side. No Sheely location. First Order, blah, blah, blah. Cloning was not mentioned. Is this the first series in, since Disney Plus started where we haven't mentioned cloning? Anakin versus Obi-Wan seen through a world between worlds. Nope. No Zeb. No Yoda.
Dang.
See, I maybe I didn't get the memo. Maybe I didn't get the rule book on like what the hell bingo really is. I don't know. I felt kind of bad just going for layups, certain things.
I agree. I think we did it right. I think we took some swings, and I think we all struck out, but we took some swings, and that's the most important part.
Yeah.
It's
So this
actually
Thrawn-
not. That's how you don't get hired, but
Right.
you know.
Thrawn only or Thrawn centric episode. I had to throw this damn qualifier here, including flashbacks. Wah wah.
Yeah.
Lost that one. Loth wolves appear.
We thought
Nope.
that would help. I think because I think I said Thrawn only episode 2. I thought it would be like, hey, for all of you at home who don't know who Thrawn is, here's a whole entire episode about him
Right.
being badass. You know,
Didn't
so
seem
that's,
unlikely.
Yeah. That's why we thought that.
Mortis location. That's no. You could really bend it
You think?
if we really wanted to cheat.
I don't mind you getting that, because think about this. We saw the world between worlds, and it was like entered in a different way than in animation. So, is that the Mortis location? And it is like a parallel universe-y type of thing. Like you need to slip into what we saw in the animation. Like, why are they there?
I think there's
Mortis.
I think there's an entirely other group of people besides just Anakin and Ahsoka who have seen the Mortis Gods.
Okay.
I think the Dathomiri, I think the Night Sisters, I think they've had a very, I'd say they've had a very mutual respect for the Mortis Gods, and that's why they built those shrines to them. And either that was for, you know, one specific person that represent. I mean, there's just so much like mythology that I don't think we're on Mortis, but I'm also now starting to be convinced that like Peridia. Man, it's hard to say, because there's like this part of me that like when we think about time, where we know that Dagobah and Mortis are both of these. What's the term for something like time moves slower?
Time dilation.
Yeah, right. It's like, is Peridia one of those places too? Which I don't think it is, because everyone else is aged on. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem like it is, but there's certainly something that could be interesting about how far away it is, and all of that. So I don't think it's Mortis. I think Peridia is its own thing, but I certainly think they know what's up
For sure. Well, let's just go through what I did get here. Morgan Elsbeth is a Night Sister. We jumped the gun on that because technically, until she was jumped in, she wasn't a Night Sister. Captain Rex did appear. Jason Syndulla did appear. Mandalorians from other houses were shown in the flashback. That would be the Siege of Mandalore.
Yep.
I mean, dude, cloning mention. I mean, we saw Clone Troopers. The YouTube is saying like, give it to you.
All right,
Go ahead, take it.
I will take it.
You still did win.
I think that means that you're trying to clone Palpatine or a greater cloning idea, right?
We're really stretching it right now.
Someone wants to win.
All right.
Know, these old ladies have been beating us at bingo for years.
Let's move on because I didn't win.
Okay.
All right. Nick, on the other hand, did pretty well here. So you've got Captain Rex appears, World Between Worlds as a location. Jason Syndulla appears, Clone Wars flashback, and a few things that we have not marked here being, let's see.
Start with the left column. No Adventure of the Week episode.
Yes. Something we couldn't make a call on until now. No Adventure of the Week.
So we're getting a no on Mortis location.
Yeah.
We're saying no. Okay.
I'm going to agree. Okay. Force Ghost appears. There we go.
Force Ghost appears.
Tail end.
I think that's it.
That's it. Oh, Thrawn only or Thrawn centric episode. Oh. Dude, one away. These are legitimate wins here.
Wait, we're giving it to Thrawn. We're saying Thrawn only and Thrawn centric episode?
Yes, but I specified with flashbacks, so I don't get it. I don't get that point. But you do.
That's not what I meant, though.
Okay.
I meant like almost like an origin story type of thing.
Well, as written, I think you deserve the point.
I mean, I'm not going to argue out of a point.
No Millennium Falcon, no Zeb, no Grogu, no Barasafi, No Din Djarin, no Agent
Gosh,
Kalash.
Nick.
You had a lot of appearances.
We got Finn though. We got Finn.
Oh, Finn the
Finn
dog
boy.
did make an appearance. No Jedi Academy. No compromised Ezra Bridger. No Ashley Eckstein on screen or as a voice. No Thrawn TIE Defender. Isn't that weird?
I would have thought when they showed the hangar, I was like, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it. And
I
they
got
didn't.
real excited.
Yep.
That's why
Yeah.
I remember texting you, Mike. I'm like, what are those ships down there?
Yeah.
Because I knew that wasn't them, but I was like, maybe they changed them. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, dude, literally, if Ben Solo or if Force Ghost would have been up one spot here, you would have had bingo across the middle with the free space.
Tic-tac-toe. Damn.
Would have nailed it. So that's my fault for arranging this. 1,000 apologies. All right, let's move on to Mike. You, we'd like to know who you've been talking to on the inside, because Mike slayed. 1,
I
2,
didn't
3,
win,
4,
though.
5, 6, 7 so far. Let's see. Captain Rex appears. Vader appears in Vader's suit. In parentheses, you specified.
Wow.
Night
Yep.
Sisters appear.
Yep.
Republic gunship scene. Sabine painted biker scout helmet scene. That was in the first episode, right?
That was in the first episode. Yep.
Yeah. Mandalorians from other houses shown. That was yours originally. Ryloth as a location. We saw in the flashback.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
that was the Clone Wars, early Clone Wars, season 1, right?
Yep.
Let's see what else here. What have we not checked off?
Nah, I think that's it. I think
Is
that's
that it?
Yeah. So
No, Thrawn only or Thrawn centric. Here we go.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If I got it, you got it, baby.
yeah. Okay. So I mean, I think like the Shin and Balin thing, man, I wanted something like that to happen. I know that was a wacky ass theory, and I said that many times. Every time I share it, I was like, this is nuts. But
The Loth Wolves thing, the idea.
yeah,
of Loth
and it was
Wolves,
interesting. But I think like just going back and seeing how much of the Arthurian like inspiration Filoni took
Yeah.
from a lot of this, I think that just made more sense for him to kind of more so reference mythology for people to just kind of get a nice little concept of what he was going for. So that was a stretch for sure. There was a part of me that was thinking that like they might be saving the Darth Maul cameo for something else. This would have been. I think there was some valid criticism of people being very worried that Dave was going to fall back too much, maybe to Dean's appreciation, or possibly, kind of looking on the other side of things. Like, Dave knows that his fan base, people who enjoy his writing in Star Wars, know that he loves doing little throwbacks and loves doing Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff. And he loves being able to share those stories and flashbacks. And so I think for a lot of people that were concerned about is this just going to be a nostalgia? Is this just going to be basically just, retreading old stories, kind of like what we saw a little bit in Obi-Wan. I think people were concerned about that. So I actually respect him a lot for not going back and going, I'm going to retell my favorite Clone Wars story, essential episodes, which he did a whole panel on at Celebration, if you remember.
Yeah.
He could have just redone all of those in live action, which I'm sure there was a temptation to do so. But I think, all in all, the fact that we put a lot of these concepts up there that would have fit, the fact that we didn't see him kind of shows, I don't know, is that Dave's maturity coming through as a writer of saying, I don't need to lean too far into the past and I want to keep moving forward? Who knows?
I mean, to me, it's just more about, I love reminding people this isn't a puzzle to be figured out, Like,
Right.
They're writing this. You could have fun speculating, but it's not a puzzle that needs to be figured out by us. Hey, Mike, real quick. I'm either on to something or close to something.
Here we go.
Which, between Balin and Shin, which one was in the mythology? Which one was chasing the sun and which one was chasing the moon?
Shin, Balin is chasing the sun and Shin is chasing the moon.
You said it. Balin is chasing the sun.
Mm.
The sun, the Mortis God son. There you go.
My boy's wicked smart.
SU1, SON. Dang.
Nice.
Wow. I was hoping that was the case. I was like, wait.
You know what, we're gonna double check that. You know what? We have the power of the internet right in front of our
Please
fingers,
check
guys.
it.
Use
Please
it. Use the
check,
internet.
because
Do
that's so good. That's so good. If that's
Let's see. Haiti and Skull. Let's see. Skull is the one who mocks, and Hati. Shin Hati. Let's see. Skull is a wolf that, according to, let's see, chases the sun. Yep. So, and Hati
go.
is chasing the moon. So yeah, chasing the sun. You know what? I like it. I like it.
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. Okay, there's something else that we left out about the Mortis arc. I want to say here, or I want to just mention. I'm trying to find the exact quote, and I'm not. Maybe we did mention this. The father referring to, in a conversation about like what Mortis is, what Peridia is, or what that galaxy is versus the prime galaxy in Star Wars. The father does refer, when talking to Anakin, refer to the galaxy as your galaxy, right? So he's specifying that either one, there's more than one galaxy, like letting us know. And I think my friend Chuck pointed this out. He said, basically, like, Filoni's been thinking about this since then. Like, what, this idea of there being another galaxy and it being this whole other can of worms that we're going to open up. Mm-hmm. There's more there, I'm sure. I mean, obviously, there's more there. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Do you remember the quote specifically? Have you read this recently?
No. I feel like we should almost next week or something just revisit the Mortis arc and talk about it.
Yeah,
Dano just did it tonight, and it was awesome. Yeah, he's another one of our boys is wicked smart. I think really it's like going back and looking at it. I think it really does go to show that, like, the power of, I think for them, we have to also look at if the idea is to expand Star Wars for us to be able to go just further beyond what we already know happens, which is the First Order, right? I think the idea is that they have to build up a congruent story that's happening at the parallel at the same time, so that we don't feel like we got this crazy mythological buildup that is clearly so feared. It clearly has so much power. It clearly might be much bigger than the First Order, because we know how the First Order ends already, right? So I can't believe that they're investing this much into the idea of Mortis and making us think that hard without thinking it's going to be a massive part of season 2, or at least a season 2 and what spins off from there. You know what I mean? It's hard to know. It really is.
Oh, there's just so much good stuff. It's like I don't have enough time to really dig in and do this. I should just watch Dano's streams.
I have a question for Dean. Dean,
Yes.
what is your take on, because I believe you said that you liked Balin's character, and knowing that the actor Reese Stevenson is no longer with us, what is your take on recasting him? Not like if you, more so like if you would, like in order to keep the story, like the story
Sure.
needs to be important here.
I think they should. I think it seems like he's important, right? And obviously, the situation was unexpected, as it seems, and I think they totally should. I think, the recreating face AI or CGI stuff is fine too, but I think, like you guys, like we talked about Harry Potter, right, with Sir Richard, and they just swapped, and you didn't even really know because, but I think they should, and I don't think it needs to be someone. We only talk about all these big name celebrities like Liev Schreiber and whoever. But I think if you find an actual true actor, they're gonna do that well.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be awesome still.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't write that. He's the actor, so like we can make this work.
Yeah.
Especially because the story seems huge from here on out. And I mentioned it's not like Cara Dune gets fired and we're like, we have to recast Cara Dune. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like this seems like it matters,
Yeah, this dude, crucial.
It seems that way to me. And he wasn't in cartoons, right? This is new for everybody.
Brand
right?
new.
Technically, he was.
Well, Ray Stevenson voiced
Saxon.
Gar-Saxon. Oh, right. But
Ray Stevenson.
Balin's Skull.
Balin's brand new too.
Yes, he's brand new. Okay.
Which, man, if they do Tales of the Jedi season 2 is coming out, I believe, right?
Pretty sure.
I
don't know that it's coming out, but I think it's at least greenlit.
I will say, I've watched those.
You have?
The Tales of the Jedi, the little like internet
the
things
shorts.
that connect things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh,
those are awesome.
All right, you guys, we're gonna get
Awesome.
Dean on board. We're gonna use Tales of the Jedi as a little bait to put him out there.
But that's very specific, right?
Yeah.
And it points to these points that I know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping too that as we get farther into this universe, and I do watch the cartoons eventually, that it'll do that. They'll all point to those things.
Well,
different little points I know.
Because
or not.
I'm struggling to believe that we're not going to get a Balin Skull episode in Tales of the Jedi. I gotta believe they're like sitting there being like, we want to see what happened to this dude, and because you could look at it in the same way that like how when we started to see and Dean, there's a couple episodes of the Clone Wars where we really started to see some of the Jedi start to cash in on what the Empire was offering, right? And there's a couple characters that like almost are so comically one-sided that you just know you're like, this guy's totally like, he's been corrupted by Count Dooku, blah blah blah. But then some of the like the fake outs, Barriss Offee is a character, if I assume that you've watched that because she's crucial to Ahsoka leaving the Order. But you start to kind of see this corruption from within in the stories, and I think like just Balin is so interesting because like his anger towards the Jedi wasn't. It almost like it didn't have it still had a calm reminiscence to it. Did anyone else feel like that? Like it was a sense of almost him being like, I wasn't forced out. I just recognized that, I wasn't offered anything else. I chose to leave. Or, he just kind of has this like almost like a philosophical approach to like why it just wasn't working anymore.
And
I think
he seemed like he really liked the church. He just didn't like the pastor. One day he was like, I'm out of here.
Sure. Yeah. So I just can't believe that they wouldn't like, clearly I hope that the fandom has been loud enough to be like, season 2 now, Tales of the Jedi, give us Balin Skull,
Yeah. I want it. I want it really badly. I mean, there's so many, like, I feel like Tales of the Jedi is something that could effectively never end. There are just so many cool stories to tell. And in that short form, it just kind of makes sense. Like, why ever cancel that? It's completely open-ended,
Yeah. I keep seeing on my Explore feed, someone made like a Luke Skywalker, but in Clone Wars, like a Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi style, but in Clone Wars animation. And it was just like, would you like to see Luke Skywalker adventures in this style? And I'm like, yeah, like really badly. Like I want to see Luke or even Balin at this point, whatever. It's like just that animation style. If it's both cheaper and quicker to produce that stuff, which I assume it must be, then man, I say it all the time. I'm here for the story, so I don't care how it appears.
Same.
Clone Wars animation looks great these days.
All right, so final tally, final score. Well, I'm going to say final and then tell you that there's maybe a curveball here in a second. I got 6, Nick got 7, Mike got 8. So Mike is the winner according to that count. But MC Rocco in the patron chat did suggest that maybe I deserve the Mother Talzin point based on the blade and the reference.
Ooh.
I'm handing out points, so I say go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Take it.
I accept. I'm happy to now tie for last place with Nick.
Hell yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yep. No bingo.
What if we combine our 2 cards? Is it more than Mike? Do we then win as a combo?
Oh, this is a good question.
Mm.
A Calicore.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
1, 2, 3,
Oh, yeah, you guys would. Yeah.
4. Yep.
Sorry,
Yep,
Mike,
that would
we
do
won.
it. That would do. So you guys won.
Sorry for your loss.
Original host, new host. You're out,
It's
bud.
rigged.
But
It's
you
rigged.
know, honestly though, the thing is we all still got more points than Ryan Key, so
Yeah.
that's nice. That's nice.
And
Yep.
coming in last place, Ryan Key.
Coming in last place with a hard ass forfeit.
Thank you very much. That really, he tried. Didn't even try.
All right. So that's bingo. We'll do it again. I don't know when we're going to do it again. Actually, it's probably going to be the Mandalorian because what the hell are we going to predict for Skeleton Crew?
I'm in.
I mean, we'll try.
I have no clue.
That could be fun, actually.
You know what? I bet you
We've been-
once we get the trailer, I think
Yeah.
we're gonna have a much better idea of like, okay, cool. Because I think we had Nick, you saw the trailer at Celebration, didn't you?
I don't know if it was a trailer, but I did see footage, yeah.
Okay.
Of that and Acolyte. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I mean, that's got to be somewhere on Reddit, I would assume, no? Like
It is, but like it's hard. It's
phone
hard.
version.
Yeah, it's hard to certainly see, and I'm sure there's been. I mean, literally the whole thing's been shot, so it's like we're gonna have. Yeah, I don't know, pirates,
Yep.
Gorian
Dude.
Shard.
Physics buddy Joe made a point that Kanan appearance counts for the photo in the Ghost.
Come
But your
on,
thing says appears as Force Ghost or voice.
Ah, all right. Yep.
nice,
All right. Well,
nice. Adam was like, "Are you guys still feeling really generous?" Like, no,
you guys, did you still have
No.
out points or?
no, we're done.
Okay.
We're done here.
All right. Screw me. All right. Let's move on and do a little something called "I Love You, I Know."
I love you.
I know.
All right, being the end of season wrap up, we're doing favorite episode, and we polled the patrons. We gave them hours to vote, tons of hours today. Put that on me, typical ADHD band dude brain. Put out a poll this morning, and the results, not a big surprise.
So typical.
What's a surprise is the one you're going to be surprised by my pick, and I'm a little bummed to be in the minority. All right, so 8 episodes. Any predictions, Dean? I'll let you predict. What do you think the winner was? Don't give us your favorite yet, but
Do I need to know the name or the number?
number's fine.
7.
You think that the penultimate episode, Dreams and Madness, is the winner?
Probably with this group, it was the Anakin between the worlds thing.
Okay.
There was a lot of you guys cried, right? There was a lot of that.
Tears
yeah.
were shed.
Oh,
yeah.
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 Classic.
Yeah, and for a lot of patrons being in the
Yes.
millennial demographic, that's a good guess. All right, should we read these results? Or before we do that, we have comments. Nick, you want to read comments from Patreon?
I would
Got a
love
bunch
to.
here.
Let me. This is bad radio, but let me switch.
And shout out to everyone who voted and left comments. We appreciate everyone participating. It's fun. Makes it more fun that way. When you don't participate, it's boring.
I am signed into my radio show Patreon, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it quickly.
Nick, I'll
so
just
if
do
you
it.
have it,
Okay,
you go
Boomer.
for it.
Boomer alert.
I'll
let's go ahead.
I'll
and
read
check
some
it.
here. Okay, and you can take it after if you get logged in after I read some. Sarah Crow said, "Look, every episode was spectacular, but my vote was for episode 1 purely because it's the beginning. I went in watching no trailers, nice, on purpose because I wanted everything to be a surprise, and I was hooked from the moment it started. Because the trailer was free, the squeal I made when I heard David Tennant's voice, the Doctor, fan of Doctor Who apparently, will always have a special place in my heart. Always happy to turn Thank the Maker into a Doctor Who podcast." Doctor Who is on my long list of sci-fi things that I'm embarrassed to have never watched.
David Tennant's going to be at New York Comic Con.
Nice. Let's see who. James McCoy says, "Best overall episode was 5, but my favorite scene was Chopper about to commit war crimes against the galaxy. Against Xiono. Yeah, that guy sucks. So there's a lot deeper stuff about why that guy sucks too. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast. Senator Xiono. Okay,
not
word.
so much, I don't think.
Well, we mentioned, him being the father of the main character of Resistance, and he sucked then, but he sucks even more when you put all this together, and it seems like he might just be like a first order loyalist or something. The guy sucks. There's some more implications there. Mando Pool guy. For me, episode 6 had it all as far as character development, particularly Balin's. They could have had him talk for the whole episode, and it would have been amazing. But also seeing the Night Troopers and Enoch, the Noti, Sabine's holler turning out to just be a puppy, had all the emotions and great storytelling. Love the whole series." One more, Nick. If you got it up, you can read. Otherwise, I'll
do
do
not.
that.
Because I also don't know our login, so.
Jacob Boyette says, "The part of me that grew up watching the Clone Wars wants to say Shadow Warrior, but we got so much in the final episode to give me hope for the future Star Wars projects and what's to come. It was just too exciting." So the finale for Jacob. All right. Let's do our favorites, and then we'll read the poll after. We'll switch it up just a little bit.
Gotcha.
And Dean, being the guest,
Yes.
Finn. Let me let him out.
you get to go first.
Well, it's hard for me to pinpoint an episode, except for the one that I thought was the most lackluster. I mean, I loved all of it, but the last episode to me was okay, cool, this has happened. And I always want this thing to happen where they go, "Oh, and next week we start the next season." But
Yeah,
they'll never ever do that. But I really enjoyed learning everything. But for me, forcing a lightsaber and bending its shape, that stuff for me was it.
yeah,
That's oh, here we go.
yes.
So yeah. So it's hard. I mean, I couldn't tell you one or the other. I'm not I don't work like that.
We're willing to let you bend the rules.
I appreciate that.
Nick, how about you? What was your favorite episode?
I'll just go with my emotions and say Shadow Warrior. I mean, we got so many versions of Anakin this entire season. We got 3 different versions of him, but that one was every episode I described to whoever asked me how I was feeling. I'm I just feel like I'm dreaming. I actually can't believe what I'm watching, and that's the best Star Wars feeling.
Yeah.
That was the first time where I was just I actually can't believe what I'm watching. This is insane. So I'll go with that. I mean, can't say enough good things about Balin, and I need his story to continue. And I want 2 more seasons of this before the movie. I don't know that we'll get that, but who knows? Maybe Mando season 4 is just it's maybe that's more Thrawn centric, and we get Thrawn set up that way. I still really don't know if Ahsoka and Sabine just stay in Peridia and we see them with like Rey post episode 9. Like, I don't know. I have no clue. That seems like such a way out for Ahsoka to not be in this galaxy, therefore not in the sequel trilogy. But she's there already, so I'm like, maybe that's a little early. So maybe there's another trick here, but I'm not sure.
It
I
seems
don't know,
like there's
but,
a big darkness when we think about all this stuff of like, hey, we know these episodes. Is all the people that we are loving going to die?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of dark, down to like Grogu.
Yeah.
No.
So like,
Grogu is the son, confirmed.
All right, Mike, how about your favorite episode?
I think what a lot of people would like me to say is the Anakin throwbacks. Because if I see Captain Rex, I'm like, that's my favorite. I think though, episode 6, Far, Far Away, is probably the one that sticks with me outside of just what I wanted to see, right?
Right.
We got new troopers. We got the concept of what Thrawn has been building. We got like the Chimera shows up. All of this is like, that's what I'm into. Like, in my video stream keeps going out. Everything's fine. Don't worry, guys. I'm here. So I think in regards to that, I think certainly episode 6 did what Nick is saying, where I feel like I'm dreaming. I would certainly say that episode 6 brought more Star Wars to me, and I absolutely love that. So, yeah, I would say episode 6 did the thing, and I would say that's the one that I think about the most often when I think about back on this season, besides the obviously big fan moments. Episode 6 is my pick for 3 reasons. One being, of course, new that really it expanded the galaxy, and I think I remember all of us wigging out about that. But then also, an Ezra reunion is great. But then we get to see Thrawn, and it all was exactly as I predicted, and it was glorious.
Well, I should have changed up the order because now I feel like I'm just copying you. Part 5 Shadow Warrior was, for all of us who are fans of the Clone Wars, just unbelievable. Like surreal to watch. Seeing those flashbacks in live action, finally seeing live action young Ahsoka, all the weight that it brought, just like the way we saw how young Ahsoka really was, the idea of like the Jedi having these child soldiers, essentially, it was so heavy. Like all the implications, everything we talked about, the guilt that she feels putting Anakin's turn on her own shoulders, carrying that, it laid it out so beautifully. I have goosebumps. Such an emotional thing. And you put all of that in this nostalgia mix, and it's just hard to top. You've got Hayden Christensen coming back, and like the beautifully done de-aging. It's just like incredible stuff. But for kind of the same reasons that Mike's saying, the boldness and like the confidence with which Filoni introduced all these new things to people who knew nothing about this. Yes, all the Ahsoka stuff's new, but it's in a show called Ahsoka. She's been in other series before. So it wasn't wildly different. The Clone Wars series took place during prequels, which people who watch live action have seen. But, talking about witches and Mortis and Peridia and all these wild things, and Thrawn's arrival. Like that, I mentioned it when we reviewed that episode. My favorite part was Thrawn showing up, all of the troopers. It was just like, oh my God, have we opened up a massive can of goodness, of the most delicious worms of all time. It's just, it was as intense of a feeling in a different way. You know what I mean? It wasn't all the nostalgia and everything. It was like pure excitement and awe at how beautiful it was and how many new possibilities we had immediately. So I'm gonna have to give it to Part 6, Far Far Away. That's for sure my favorite.
Final answer.
Final answer. All right, let's look at some poll results from the patrons. If you want to participate in these polls, people listening, patreon.com/thankthemakerpod. For the base level $5 a month Patreon tier, you can participate in these polls. So do that. It helps the podcast. It pays the bills. That's what it's there for. Support, please.
I'm one of them.
Thank you, dude. Holy shit, thank you.
Look how far it got me.
Yeah.
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 If you're a patron, one day you will wind up on the show.
Be a patron, roast coffee, 3D print things, be friends with Nick. You're on the podcast.
Play bass.
Win. There you
Yes,
go.
play bass.
The rhythm section is heavy in this group right now. I actually really appreciate that.
We had so many bass players on this podcast. It's unreal.
There's a lot of songs that we have that nobody wants to listen to
Yes.
that we wrote, right?
Absolutely.
All right. If you want to talk about the Chili Peppers and Primus and stuff, like just get on this podcast and we'll do it. All right. Let's see. Tied for third place, 5% each. Part 6, Far Far Away, and Part 7, Dreams and Madness. Interesting that Dreams and Madness, I don't know. It was a good episode, but it's interesting to me that it tied Far Far Away. I don't know. I thought more people would be about that episode. I was incorrect. Second place, runner-up, 23% of the vote, Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, the finale. And the predictable winner with 65% of the vote, landslide victory, Part 5, Shadow Warrior. Yep.
Dean was right.
Yeah.
Nailed it. That's that millennial emo kid vote right there.
Hey, you know
That's
your
me.
audience.
I'm young.
We do. We
I'm
do, and
young
so do you.
And hip.
I'm not. Thanks, patrons. Thanks for voting so quickly. Sorry for the short notice. That's I mean, you know what to expect at this point. What else? Any thoughts before we go? Before we plug Mosh Eisley again? Final thoughts on
Hashtag recast Balin Skull.
yes.
Hashtag more seasons ASAP of everything.
Hashtag the please give me the art of Andor, the art of Book of Boba Fett, the art of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You know what I want?
I need these books, man. Like, what are we doing? Like, Abrams, you watch the show? We need
You know
need
what we
these
really
books.
need? What we really need? Costume books for all of these. And that reminds me,
We have to. We
Had a
have
big
to.
loss.
Absolutely, we did.
Mike,
Oh yeah.
take it away.
If you probably saw a lot of sharing the past couple days, we tragically lost a pivotal member of the Star Wars community. Shauna Tripsick was the costume designer for most of the California shows since Mandalorian season 2. So under her direction, she managed a incredibly talented group of costumers in Marcus and Judah Escalante and a lot of people that really brought like what Shauna did for the costuming community can't be understated because she's one of she was incredibly active in the fandom, right? Like I'm in a couple of the build groups because I love watching people figure out new costumes and at the speed that they do. Shauna would pop in and go, "Hey, I've seen a lot of interest in like what are the fabrics? Like here, I'll tell you exactly where I went. We went to this place up in Hollywood and they have these fabric swatches and we dyed it this color." That is information that was so difficult for people to figure out that she just loved seeing how this community wanted to pay homage to what these characters and what these costumes mean for people. She's adding to this incredible list of iconic silhouettes in Star Wars through her work. And she had worked on She'd worked on Firefly. She was the main costume designer on Firefly. She had worked on Power Rangers. It was like one of her first shows. She's had a really long list of accolades, and for her to be able to come on, she was the main costume director for Mandalorian season 2. She took over after Joseph Porro, which was obviously she got to dress Luke Skywalker in the iconic, Jedi outfit. She was the one who got to redesign the post-Sarlacc Boba Fett, Boba Fresh, the Daimyo. Updating. She got to help bring Bo-Katan and the Night Owls to life, bringing Cad Bane into live action, bringing Sabine Wren into live action, almost a verbatim. Like you could just see what a fan she was of Star Wars. And unfortunately and tragically she passed away. And I think when I think about it, like she had come to our most recent Mosh Isley. We have a friend in BK, and she had Shauna. This is one of those things where you look at and you go, this is certainly something of the Force. Shauna had come in, Adam and I, last time we were in California for I think for the Galaxy show. We went to her coffee shop and I actually saw her while we were there. And I guess Shauna had walked in and she had a Star Wars Celebration shirt on, and someone pointed over to BK and goes, "Hey, she's got a Star Wars she got a Star Wars shirt on. We should check her out." BK looks over and like loses her mind because BK, Brittany, represents everything that's right about Star Wars costuming. Like she makes stuff out of foam, she's painting it with acrylic paint, she's working at a coffee shop, and she's like in love with costuming. And so the tragic side of things is that Shauna recognized how important BK was to the fandom, and she was going to bring her on as an assistant for the productions moving forward. And I guess they had felt confident enough in what was happening with that. And so you look at, like, it was part of the Force that they met. It's a really tragic thing for the community because she was such an asset for helping people. And obviously you really want to see people who love this franchise, because there isn't, when we see that everyone, for the most part, who works on Star Wars now is a huge fan, and it's incredibly important because like they know that we care about these characters so much. And so to Shauna's family and to everyone that she worked with, I know a couple of them listen to the podcast. We are so sorry for your loss. And we of course, and we're going to see a lot of them at New York this weekend. And it is, and I just hope that there is, she was able to come to the last Mosh Isley, and seeing her characters come to life in this like punk rock way, because she's a punk rock, she's a rock and roller herself. And there's this great shot of her hugging our buddy Nate, Captain Nader, who is the Black Krrsantan, right? The Black Parade Krrsantan. And she hugged him and said, "This is my boyfriend." But like, she helped bring that costume to life. And to see that fans have taken her creation, faithfully recreated it, and then done their own remix, which is like basically how the Mandalorian came to be, and Brian Matthias being inspired by the Mandalorian mercs and like all this stuff, right? The community has suffered a tremendous loss. So we remember Shauna Terpsick. I did have plans for her to be on Armor Party, so I think there were big things that were going to happen. I think it really is. It's worth, of course, mentioning and talking about a couple times. We'll probably say something about it at Mosh. Just because there's going to be a lot of people there who are inspired by her work. And I think the best thing that we can do is continue to let her legacy live on as we continue to see the characters that she helped costume, that she helped build and help create. But yeah, I hope if you're listening to this, you go and really look into her body of work, because it's worth honoring for sure. So, a big hug to everyone who is affected by this, still grieving, I'm sure. But as we say usually when we lose someone, may the Force be with you, and we'll see you on the other side for sure.
Well, like Mike said, a lot of folks who were only a degree or two of separation away from her, will be probably hanging with us at Mosh Eisley in New York this weekend. At the time of this recording, it's just 4 days away. So if you're going to New York Comic Con, come hang out with us. Have a punk rock Star Wars emo night experience with us at the Gramercy Theater. Tickets are still available. Come hang out. MoshIsley.com is the quickest and easiest way to go find those tickets. Or check any of our links and bios. Dean, thanks for being here with us and hanging out and bringing your insight. It's been fun.
Thank you guys so much. This was the coolest thing ever.
Good times.
Anytime you need to text me about anything.
You got my number, baby.
Yeah.
I just like texting you early because I wake up with the family and I know you're asleep. And I don't hear back till like 10.
So, Dean,
my
you're the
favorite
reason why Nick is able to answer us so early in the morning, even though he's on the West Coast. I appreciate
Blowing
you.
him
Dean.
up.
That's awesome.
I've woken him up. Yes.
I answer Dean before I answer the Mosh Eisley texts.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching and listening. Patrons, thanks for being patrons. Thanks for doing the poll. Good times. And until next week, may the Force be with you.